We're going to be talking about the Glockstore extended magazine releases, both the rectangular one and the teardrop one. Are you ready? Stand by. So if you've competed with the Glock in the past, specifically a Gen 4 or Gen 5, you're probably familiar with the fact that the magazine button is not the most positive and difficult to get magazines to drop. That's a problem in competition shooting when you're moving from position to position, because if you can't get the gun reloaded fast, you're probably not moving fast and you're losing time on the stage. Before we go any further, let's talk about what divisions this part is legal in. So this is going to be legal in production division, carry optics division, limited, and open if you compete with an open Glock. And in IPSC, it would be legal in standard and open. It would be legal in most variants of 3-gun, and it might be legal for IDPA. They have really tough rules to determine if a mag release is legal, but the rectangular one should pass the test. Now, before we look at the aftermarket part from the Glockstore, let's look at the OEM release. You can see it doesn't stand very proud of the frame, and what makes matters worse is that there is a bump right there from when people used to fold their thumbs down in the 80s to shoot pistols. They thought you needed a memory pad right there. So the ridge of this memory pad kind of hits right there. So getting the mag to drop free, if you want to press on the back of the button, you don't get a very good engagement from the button. You have to actually press closer to the front of the button. And that's generally, if you practice, that's where you find out you need to be hitting when you are trying to drop magazines. That and keeping the gun vertical when you actuate the mag button. You absolutely can train around it, but if you watch a lot of new guys, you see them shaking mags out of their guns and having issues getting mags to drop free. It's not so much a mag friction thing, although it can be that if you let the tubes get real dirty. It's really kind of an issue of getting a good press on that mag button. Now, guns like the Shadow 2 actually come from the factory with a button that looks very much like the Glockstore button. So what's interesting about the Glockstore button is it's actually an OEM mag release, which is made out of polymer that comes with an aluminum pad with 2 machine screws that you use the provided Allen key to set down. So when you actually assemble it, it ends up looking like this put together, which means no matter where you hit this button, no matter where I press it, it's putting pressure on the front of the magazine release, which is making the magazine drop free. And I've noticed that in dry fire, and I've noticed it in actually shooting live fire, that magazines drop free every time, and I can be a little bit sloppier with how I'm holding the gun as a result. So this button is fantastic. Now you might be saying a plastic part is pretty cheesy. Why didn't they just make the whole thing out of aluminum? And I would have agreed with you at first until you realize that so are the mag tubes for OEM Glock magazines and all of the aftermarket magazines. So if you have metal on plastic, what's going to end up happening is that the edges of the mag tubes are going to get worn down by the harder aluminum or metal magazine release. So by using a plastic, they're going to actually prolong the life of your mag tubes. And then by threading in the aluminum, you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. Now, between the two of these, the teardrop is a bit bigger, and the pads are interchangeable if you wanted to change them out if you have both. But the teardrop is slightly enlarged and slightly longer. And when I grip the gun and my support hand rides on the gun like that when I'm gripping, I can feel the front of the magazine release, but I'm not putting any pressure on it. I haven't had any issues. However, when I tried the teardrop magazine release, I did have an issue. I managed to, only twice in about a 300 round session did I have mags drop free. When the session started, I adjusted my grip and it wasn't a problem. But if you're somebody who has smaller hands, I think you would find a welcome home on the teardrop magazine release. For everybody else with medium or large hands, I think you're probably better off with this rectangular release. It does really well. They offer it in a bunch of colors, so if you've customized your Glock, you can get them to match your trigger shoe or whatever it is you want to do. Now, the Glockstore has videos on actually installing the part, and they've very highly produced, so I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel and just point you towards that. Now, the tip that I'll give you is do not mount the pad onto the magazine release and then try and thread it through the frame. It won't fit. So what you end up doing is have it in 2 pieces like I have here. Remove the old magazine release. When you fish the new magazine release through the frame, lead with the button edge. The rear is a little oversized due to this ledge, and it won't go through the frame. So you have to start with the button. Now, once the magazine release is threaded through the frame, you can use the Allen key to tighten down the pad onto the release, and you'll be off to the races in no time. Now both of these are available from the Glockstore.com for about $35, and they come in a Gen 3 and a Gen 4 variety. The Gen 4 definitely fits on the Gen 5 frame. So before you run over there to check them out, please check out the links in the description. I've got discount codes to save you money on holsters and some ammo, and a link to my merch store where you can buy really cool logo gear. But all in all, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later, guys.